So we are now changing format, and we will have a panel discussion on science communication. And that will be moderated by Anna Maria Hartkopf. She is a doctoral researcher at Freie Universität Berlin, the Free University in Berlin, part of the work group on discrete geometry and topological combinatorics. Her research focuses on mathematical science communication, and she is the independent junior research group leader for science communication at Freie Universität Berlin. She also leads the MIP.labor, which is an ideas workshop for science journalism. So please, and of course this is funded by, needless to say, Klaus Tschira Stiftung. So it's a great pleasure to have Anna Maria on the stage, and she will introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Helge Holden. I am delighted to have the opportunity today to talk about my research topic, which is science communication and mathematics, in this audience. Welcome, everybody, to our panel discussion on science communication. And we will meet 4 panelists that will bring a very diverse experience to this stage. Because science communication is pretty much all about engaging the audience, I would like to start by engaging the audience. And for this we have this Slido. Yes, here it is. So if you need a Wi-Fi, it's on the left-hand side, and the Slido code is on the right-hand side, and you can scan the QR code, and then hopefully we see our question. Okay, maybe I read out the question first, and then you can think about your answer. So have you ever been involved in a science communication project? First answer, there are multiple choice that here we see. Okay, so the choices are never, and I would not want to. Never, but I would like to, once or twice, and it's my job, or it's a big part of my job. Okay, we wait a little bit while we see those moving for your answers. So I'm extremely happy to see that up there is the never but would like to. And then we see people, about half of the people have been involved in projects, and we see that even 8% of the people in this audience are doing it professionally, and we have the 8% who would not want to. I guess that's fair enough. Not everybody needs to do science communication. I think that's also very important to say. Yeah, but I'm really interested in your questions and also the contributions of those who have experience in science communication at the end of our slot in the Q&A. Yeah, but now, without further ado, let's welcome our panelists on the stage. And the first is Kumba Sar. There she is. Welcome. Kumba. Kumba is born and raised in Senegal. You can take a seat, please. And then she moved to France to very briefly study agriculture, but then moved on to mathematics, which she found she loved to do much more. And then she holds a PhD from the University of Caen and is now working as a generative AI consultant for Evident in Paris. Evident.
Athos. You can say Athos.
Okay. No, I've practiced the French pronunciation. Evident, okay. In Paris. She's the co-founder of the Teranga Math Association in Senegal and is in charge of the communication of the Senegalese Women in Mathematics Association. Welcome, Kumba. Next up, and with a lot of luggage, may I help you, is Moira Chas. She is from Argentina, and she is a professor for mathematics at Stony Brook University in the United States. She specializes in low-dimensional topology and history of mathematics. She has won many awards, but one I find especially impressive, so I want to say it. It's the Simon Center playwriting competition that she won on a piece on Elisha Stott-Boole. I'm sure many of you have seen Moira's beautiful sculptures that were on display in the lobby of the university building. And she has been looping those from wire. You can see it here. In fact, yesterday we had a little meeting, like a pre-meeting with the panelists, and it was really nice. We sat there, and Moira was actually doing this while we were discussing it, and it was really very interesting to see it grow in real time. So, yeah, Moira will show us some of her sculptures in a minute. Next up, Next up is Yudhi Bunjamin. He is, in fact, an HLF alumnus from 2022. He's from Jakarta, and his PhD is very fresh. And so it's so fresh, it's just from June this year, so please, let's give him a round of applause for that. He is now working as an associate lecturer at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. It's also where he got his PhD from. And there he's also involved in designing outreach workshops for high school students. And he's the host of a podcast that is called The Neumann Talk. Welcome, Yudhi. And Erika. Where are you? There. So, and our fourth panelist is Erika Roldan Roa. She was born and raised in Mexico. And fun fact about her is that she's been a professional soccer player as a teenager. And it was, in fact, popular science books that drew Erika back into academia. And so I think that's a beautiful example on science communication at play. And now Erika has quite an impressive career. She has two groups, one at the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig and one at the university in Leipzig, where she works on artificial intelligence. That's SCAT's AI group. Erika migrated from the US to Europe on a Marie Curie fellowship. And she is on the advisory board of the Gathering for Gardner, which many of you might know is an organization in the tradition of Martin Gardner, who was like a pioneer of science communication and mathematics. Erika co-founded several projects in Mexico, the US, and Europe that we will hear more about. And the main goal of those projects in Erika's work is to foster and enhance diversity and inclusivity culture in and out of academia. So welcome to the panelists. Yeah, and Moira and Erika both brought us things to show, and so I would like you, Moira, to start maybe with giving the audience some hands-on experience on science communication of mathematics. Yes, please.
Okay. So, well, science communication for me is one to a few people, project. So here I feel a little overwhelmed with large quantity of all of you. Oh, sorry. I'm a good yeller, so Dennis, my husband, knows I can yell. So, and what I like many of you have listened the word climb bottle or the expression climb bottle. And I'd like you to picture in your mind, whatever you think it is, just picture it. And I'm going to, maybe I'll ask you, seem like a helpful person, distribute this in the rows. Just pass this around, look at them, you can touch, some have zippers. So those are all versions of a climb bottle. Here, I just finished making one that will stay here in Germany. I mean, Klein was German, so Klein bottles, they have a right to be here. And this is probably not the image, the standard image that you have in your head when you say a Klein bottle. So one question I like to emphasize is in math, we often ask, or we often answer the question, what do you mean by something? When we say, well, what do I mean when I say Klein bottle? Some people have this image. Oh, Yael, would you please raise that? Some people have that image, probably. But in fact, for a mathematician, a Klein bottle is a space with certain properties. And the properties I discussed, but one way to, you could think about it is, I need my hands. This is not, see, science communication, I cannot do it without hands. So imagine you have a tube, and now you want to glue the two ends of the tube. These are my fingers, and I could glue them like this. That's not a Klein bottle. What I want to glue it is, so this end, this and this end, I want to glue it like this, flipping it. Not the way you get a tube. This is how Klein described his Klein bottle. But I cannot do that. If you try to do that in the three-dimensional space, it's not a German problem, okay? You cannot do that in the three-dimensional space. And then what we do is, the best you can, you represent the Klein bottle in different ways in our three-dimensional space. So when I say the answer for a mathematician, what do you mean by a Klein bottle, is the space that you get by doing inside your mind the process that I just described. If you do that, and of course I'm thinking about material auto-deformation, and I have only 2 minutes, so I'm trying to rush, you can also get something like this. And you can also get something like the things you are passing by. So maybe I encourage you, every time you have a term, think, what do I mean by this term? And give a precise and clear, understand that very well. There was one thing that Yael said, we are looking for deep understanding. I love that sentence, it's in my heart. I'm glad that you said it. And and communication too. So anyway, think about what a Klein bottle is and ask me more if it was too short. Oh no,
that is yours, yeah.
Oh gee, no, okay. Oh, that's mine.
So Erica brought a Klein bottle as well, and other models. Do you also need a hand? I can help you. I'll be the assistant here.
So I'm gonna. Is it working? Yeah. I'm gonna also pass some of the math visualization models, and I'm not gonna discover for you the magic, but we can discuss it later. All of these are coming from research in extremal combinatorics and first passage percolation models, and yes, have fun trying to come up with the math behind them. So perhaps we could pass them. And so let me give you another example of the Klein bottle, and that was the idea, like to connect. So I don't have to talk very much about it because it was great introduced here. So there is another way of picturing the Klein bottle, and imagine that you are a d-dimensional cubical entity. So you're only allowed to live in a d-dimensional cube. And there you want to realize your favorite surfaces. In this case, you want to realize the Klein bottle. So the question is, what is the minimum number of faces, two-dimensional faces, that you need? And where is the minimum dimensionality of the cube that could allow you to embed a Klein bottle? So there is a magic that happens when you put together two Mobius bands on the fifth dimensional cube, and then you connect them by the two-dimensional parallel faces connecting this. So I'm going to pass this as well, and I'm just going to advertise using artificial intelligence and machine learning also for your mathematical visualization projects, because what we needed to do was to actually minimize the intersections of the faces to be able to 3D print it. So we used reinforcement learning algorithms to actually reduce the intersections of this Klein bottle embedded in the fifth dimensional cube that was realized in 3D by the 3D printer. So yeah, I'm going to pass it.
Thank you. What happens is they're like true science communicators of mathematics. You give them a stage and they start communicating mathematics. So now I have one more question for the audience, because we want to discuss formats, different formats of science communication and mathematics here. And I would like to ask you, what formats do you know when you think of science communication in mathematics, and I guess computer science? So please give me 1 or 2 word answers on this. It can be examples, can be specific titles, whatever do you know in terms of formats of science communication. Yeah, on this Slido. And I guess we can see this podcast, YouTube. Okay, we see podcasts are very popular these days. Yeah, we see that there's like articles and books, so usual written forms of science communication, but also games and workshops that are more interactive and engaging the audience. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, Yudhi, I want to talk to you about the design of the workshops for high school students that you're doing in Sydney. And can you walk us through the process? Because I believe it's a bit of a special design process that goes into those workshops.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's also great to be back at HLF. So, yeah, I work with a big team, mostly at UNSW, but also in lots of different places. And the idea is that we are designing mathematics outreach workshops that are intended to convey aspects of mathematical thinking and not necessarily about certain areas or applications of mathematics. And we really take our time to design these. So, I mean, this is a good time maybe to mention that actually the picture on the top left there was taken last week in Stockholm when I visited a collaborator who I'm designing a workshop with, who I actually met at the HLF 2 years ago. So, you know, good things can come out of the HLF, I'm sure. But the way we start is we start with a learning outcome. So the learning outcome, for example, I did a workshop on Tuesday, and I demoed one of the workshops in that workshop. And the learning outcome is about explaining what it means for something to be impossible in mathematics, the concept of non-existence. Or the workshop that I'm designing with Louis Yudhowitz is about how sometimes the thing that we perceive to be the problem is not necessarily the problem that needs solving. Right? So, you know, there's sometimes the lever to pull is not directly on the variable that you're trying to solve. So we start with that learning outcome, and then I can talk at length about the process, but we look for some piece of mathematics that is a good vehicle for that learning outcome. And once we found that, you know, we try to create a narrative around it, create the manipulatives, so the things that the kids touch, and also work on how we present this. And then once we have a workshop, which Louis and I have been working on 2 years on this, and we only just have a workshop, then it's years of testing before, I think we're going to be testing this forever, right? But just repeated trials and tweaking slowly how we run it and trying to understand how we adapt it to different audiences. Yeah.
And can you give us an example of what formats you're using then? You said the manipulatives, the things that the kids touch, and the narratives.
So
maybe for this.
Yeah, our preferred format is to be in a room with kids, say 30 of them. That's already a bit of a stretch, right? And we have a presenter up the front, but we also have facilitators. So maybe a good ratio is 1 facilitator to 6 to 8 students. Right? And they sit in, I guess you can see in the pictures what kinds of room layouts we have. You know, there's a presenter explaining the story up the front, but every so often the presenter stops talking and they work on a particular task with these manipulatives, with various hints that the facilitators have been trained on, and we hope everything goes to plan.
Thank you. Mara, can you tell us about this play I mentioned earlier? Because the play, the Alicia Stott, I think that like a theater piece is a very novel way to communicate science.
Yeah, well, I can tell you a bit forget about this. So this wonderful mathematician, she was born in 1860, 1860. Her name is Alicia Bull, and you might recognize the Bull name, some of you, hopefully. Well, she was the daughter of George Boole, who was, the first person who discovered who described Boolean algebras. Alicia Boole, was his daughter. He died when she was 4 years old, so, we cannot say her father trained her. And at some point in her life, when she was a little more than, she was a teenager, somebody explained her ideas of four-dimensional geometry. And she got completely hooked. And then from there, she kept thinking and thinking and thinking. While, she was middle class, they have a lot of money, she raised children, so it's not like she had the luxury of the time to think that, not everybody has. And she, developed models and, really did important things in studying these shapes. Later, she connected to a mathematician and started, she wrote some papers. Anyway, she's really an inspiring person. I wish we could invite her here. But she has no laureate. She's not a laureate, but she's wonderful anyway. Anyway, so I wrote a little play about her just to, talk more about her. If you're curious about the play, well, I can send you that. I have the text in my website. My daughter made a movie about it. So it's in YouTube, and it's about, it's very hard to describe her ideas in a 20-minute play. It's to get a glimpse of her ideas, but also what I think it was her passion in the discovery and working, and this idea, I want to emphasize, we are all searching in understanding, and she's one person like that who put all this time and effort and got fantastic results and enjoyed the process. Most of the time. Sometimes there's frustration too.
Thank you. Thank you. Erica, I've mentioned that you are hosting, and you founded so uncountably many projects of science communication in mathematics and computer science. And one thing, I guess, that is a thread that goes through all of your projects is this thing that you said is a goal of your endeavors, which is a democratization of mathematics. And this really stuck with me, and I would love if you could tell the audience a little bit what you mean by that, and also how that influences your work and your projects. Maybe give us an example or two.
Yes, well, it's, I think is the motivation underlying my everyday as a mathematician and as a researcher, and yes, and I think it's super important with this kind of audiences to talk about democratization of what we do, and I think we all know that we have, as it has been mentioned, brilliant minds here, and I think there are tons of brilliant minds everywhere that have not had a chance and the means to get to these, to get laureates, and I think that is part of our duties with having an education as PhDs in mathematics and computer science, to make sure that we kind of increase the probability of underrepresented communities in academia. And I can speak for myself that when I have the privilege to do outreach, for example, here in Europe with people in asylum, people that are coming in very different circumstances to the Schengen area, I can see the spark in their eyes, feeling that they can belong to this society by being empowered by, for example, the possibility of studying STEAM. So I will say that I believe that we have this duty to try to democratize mathematics and computer science in particular. Yes.
Yeah, and you, how do you do that? And like very specifically, that's like a great goal, but it's difficult to achieve, of course, especially working with people of very different backgrounds, very different levels of education, maybe don't have a common language. So how would you do that?
I think by adapting the activities and the way that the activities are presented and the mathematics. So for example, I can give a quick example. I have socks from Mondrian. People can see them? Yes? Well, I'm working on a Mondrian problem. That is, you have an n by n square, and then you try to tessellate these n by n squares with rectangles that are non-congruent. And then the question is, and this is an open question, I just recently with collaborators published a paper on that, is can you find an n by n square so that you get actually tessellated with rectangles with the same area, but that are non-congruent on them, between them? And this is an open question, and we only know that up to 1,000 by 1,000, so n equals 1,000, this cannot be done. So I hope to get an email today or tomorrow with someone who would have an idea how to do it. But then the only thing that you require here is to have rectangles of different sizes, squares of different sizes, and then I did this workshop, and people were able to actually look at up to 6 by 6 and find all the possibilities of tessellating with these properties. Not getting all of the same sizes, but non-congruent. And this was in Switzerland in an organization for asylum people in asylum, and there were 12 women. Most of them didn't have even French language, and they were able to go out there saying that they were going to attempt higher and higher possibilities for bigger squares. So this is an example on how to try to democratize mathematics. They were working on an open problem, and they got very interested on it.
Thank you. Kumar, you are involved in many endeavors in science communication projects in Senegal, and can you tell us about those?
I began doing math outreach with a French association named Animat, and created by Martin Le here since 1998. And the main goal of this association is not to have high school students watching us doing math like we used to do it in our classroom, but the goal is to get high school students to do math by themselves. And in Animath, we do a lot of activities like competitions, preparation for the Olympiad of Mathematics, workshops, and international activities. I'm involved precisely in the Animat International with Christian Duhamel. We work with a lot of countries, and Animat International start in 2011 with Kosovo. Kosovo is not a French speaker country, but after starting the experience with Kosovo, Animat International has tried to do the same things in French-speaking West Africa countries like Cameroon, the two Congos, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Madagascar. We had some issues at 2020 because of the COVID-19. So it slowed down our activities in Africa, and now we are actively in collaboration with 5 countries in West Africa, Djibouti, Senegal, Cameroon, Congo, and Madagascar. Maybe a little bit involved in Senegal activities because you can maybe guess from Senegal. And in Senegal, we, since 2019, we organize workshops where we used to send French researchers to Senegal for animating math activities with high school students. One year ago, by a suggestion from Animat, we decided to create an association, another association, a Senegalese association similar to Animat in Senegal, because we think that it is important that high school students, young people, can identify themselves to people they are talking about math to us. It is important that they see that they have a person who they can identify to themselves. That's why we created Terangamat, and one of our most impactful activities is the training of the Senegalese team for Olympiad, Math Olympiad. The Senegalese team never participate in math, in international mathematical Olympiad, but last year we participate in the Francophone, French speaker math Olympiad, and we hope that maybe in maybe the next edition of this competition we can participate.
Yeah, and what are the next steps for the mathematics organization?
Oh, the next step will be an exhibition that we are going to organize in Senegal next year about how mathematics is related to our culture, Senegalese culture, and in general African culture. Maybe I can give an example about these exhibitions. In our African language, we use for counting additive and multiplicative structure, like in French and in English, when we used to count, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, 10, 11, 12. So in my native language, in Wolof, and I have a discussion this morning with Kasim from Nigeria, and he told me that we have the same way to count. In Wolof, we say ben, ñaar, ñett, ñeent, juróom, juróom ben, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we don't have a special word to say 6. We say 5 plus 1, 5 and 2, 5 and 6, and we have a word for 10. We say fuk, but after 10 we don't say 11, 12 or 11, 12 in French. We say 10, 1, 10, 2. And for 15, we say 10, 5. For 16, we say 10, 5, 1. it is a very logical way to make easier addition and multiplication for native speaker. What I mean is that in Senegal, Senegal is our official language is French, but all the countries speak Wolof, which is our native language. The school is mandatory from the age of 6, and we start learning math at the same time we start learning French. So what we would like to suggest is that math is a very universal language. We don't have to speak math before learning speak French or English. We can explain math in all language. So we would like to suggest in Senegal to start learning math before learning French or English.
So now the lesson is in French. You learn math in French language?
Yes.
Like the lesson that would be held in French?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yudhi, you also told me yesterday that in the preparation for your high school workshops, you also incorporate the different cultures that you find in Australia, and that there's elements of indigenous mathematics in it.
Yes, so the goals of our workshop design is to design something that is sufficiently universal that we don't have to completely redesign something for different contexts. And so one of the things that we do in our design process is we think about, can this be adapted to a diversity of circumstances? So for example, in the early days of the project, actually the first time we did these workshops was in really remote parts of Australia. So you think, we have to drive 7 hours from Sydney to get to this country town. And these are parts of Australia where the population of indigenous Australians is of higher proportion than in other parts of Australia. So we have to think about whether or not, for example, our analogies that we use in the workshop are translatable or, universally understood. But I don't think it's just the, say, indigenous population in Australia, but also when we do these workshops in Sydney, we have a lot of international students who their English is not at the same level as their peers who grew up in Australia. So various things like that. And now that we have international collaborations, we're starting to think, for example, does this translate well? So for example, I always think about, can I say the same thing in Indonesian? Because that's my mother language, and does it mean the same thing when I say it in Indonesian? And that's a very long process and very challenging.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me examples of formats that you would adapt to different cultures? And here's one more.
Thanks. Yes, well, I have been, my academic life has been in different countries. So Mexico, USA, here Switzerland, here in Germany and Switzerland. And yes, for example, the technology that one uses is very important with respect to where one is. And sometimes in Mexico, I initiated, co-initiated like an outreach group at the Center for Research in Mathematics. Now it's in its 14th, 15th year, and with thousands of people being reached. And we were going to very marginalized places in Mexico, and we knew that we couldn't count with electricity. So now I'm developing video games and etc., and I can use them here anytime that I do outreach and educational activities. But there, one needed to be prepared to use pencil and paper, and then some other material that we brought, not even counting on chairs or tables. And I think that's an example, or for example, in the USA, I was very much involved with the Latinx community, and having everything bilingual in Spanish and in English, and being able to interact in Spanish, not allowing this to be a barrier to be able to interact. And I think this is one of the points of why it is important to develop outreach initiatives with this mindset of universality or democratization as much as possible, is that what we do could actually impact the society and communities all around the world. As we know, we have like mathematics and computer science. It's widespread. And I would like to ask Komba, or just to that we meet later, because Mayans also had, I think, kind of a similar numeration system. And one of the things that is possible to do is to do very quick calculations by putting these 5, 5, 1, 1, 1, 1, 10, etc. The zero, the concept of the zero, being even before that the concept of the zero came to this in this land. And yes, I think mathematics is closer to music, in the sense that we all react emotionally to the recognition of patterns, or to wonder, or having curiosity about some structures that will capture our attention. And I think that there is a wonderful book that is called Where Mathematics Comes From. And it is about our biological predisposition. We are problem solvers, we humans, right? I'm terrible in nature, like I will die in 2 days in the woods. I know people, there are some people that have more skills than me, but I think the way we go through this existence as humans is using our powers of problem solving, and I think this is definitely in each human being. Yes.
Thank you. Something that is very close to my heart as a researcher on science communication and mathematics is the question, what are we aiming at with those projects? What are we trying to achieve? And then also trying to define that in very precise terms, and as a next step to hopefully find a way to maybe measure this. And I would like to ask you, basically all of these questions, like how are you in this process of thinking what are the goals of the project, and then how do we try to achieve it? What's the measure we're trying to achieve it, and have we implemented a measure to see if it's successful? Do you want to start?
I will start with an anecdote. In 2018, I was in Senegal with two researchers from Université de Grenoble, and we animate a workshop with high school students, and we propose them a problem about a crepe maker. I don't know how to say crepe in English, but it's like pancake. Yes, crepe, but yes. Crepe is crepe, okay. Yes, okay.
Pancake.
Crepe are better than pancake. Okay, more seriously. We propose them to think about the way this crepe maker will do to arrange the crepe from the bigger one to the smallest. And when we finished to propose the exercise, all the students were looking at us, and they didn't know what does a crepe mean. So we used to propose this exercise in France, and we didn't think about the way to adapt this problem in Senegal. So after the workshop, we speak about this experience and what this experience taught to us is that we have to adapt our way to communicate in function of the culture, the person we have in front of us. So what I mean is that you can't use the same way to communicate with a French people in science and for the Senegalese people or an African people. So I think that we have maybe to think in this kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, Moira, please.
Can I add? Yeah, I think we are saying the same thing in many ways. I mean, I strongly agree. We really, and I want to encourage, here we are all scientists and we search for understanding, but I would like to encourage all of you to have another role, which is let's be ambassadors of science. And we talked about, yesterday, it's not that easy to really explain things. I mean, you can always say blah, 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 lots of words, but you have to, I think, to really reach people and contribute to their understanding, we have to think, who are we talking to? And then, well, you have to put your ideas, try to put yourself as much as you can in the place of that person and talk to their mind. And then help, math, I mean, I know math, is something that people can discover by themselves. And I always feel like you just illuminate a little bit of the path so they can go by themselves. It's a lot of work to, have this flashlight and think about what is the best way I can find to illuminate the way. And that way depends on the person you're talking to. I mean, all these people do big things. I just talk to one-on-one, maybe, 30 is my class and so on. But I think we should really give more value to this idea of communication. I mean, I don't like the fact that, most of our grad students, they are perfectly well trained in math, and they have a tiny bit of, how to teach. Well, my job as a, math professor is 40% teaching, So if we are scientists, why don't we look at the science of that and how to best communicate, and we have to put, time and effort there. So, yes, that's it.
Thank you, Moira.
I mean, on this point, I remember 2 years ago at HLF when Anna was the one on the panel, and I was sitting in the audience waiting for the panel to happen, and there was another young researcher who asked me, what do you think is the hardest thing about science communication today? I don't know why he's asking me this, just decided to ask me this. And I don't know where this answer came from, but I said, I think the hardest thing about science communication today is communicating that science communication is hard. And I don't know, one of the great things about HLF is you find yourself saying things that you never thought you had inside of you. But I don't mean to say that it's any harder than anything else, but it's just not a trivial problem. As a naive, I guess I started doing this before my PhD and thought this would be very simple and didn't realize that, Louis and I, 2 years later, are still trying to figure out the basics of this workshop we're trying to design. And so I think this just goes to show that we need to give people the time and space to innovate in the science communication space in the same way that we give people the time and space to innovate to do their research, right? Or even, and also to think about the way that they do their teaching.
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to just change a word. Let's just change hard for requires time and effort. Sometimes when you say something is hard, people think, oh, I can't do it. It can be done. You can all do it. You just to have to put time and effort.
Yeah, I
it
agree.
requires time and effort. So think about communication, think about who you're talking to. I mean, it is hard, I agree, but I think I like to encourage you to do it. So, sometimes they say, math is hard, and then this is the excuse for some people not to even try. But no, with the right tools and, the right time and the right explanation, everybody can do it. As Erica said, I strongly agree with that. The thing is sometimes we are not helping the people properly, and we don't transmit that the level of understanding that we all reach, it took us time and effort. We have here people which are in all the levels to the super top of their careers. All of you, put time and effort.
Yeah, I think it would just be nice if we didn't expect people to be able to just rock up and do great things. Yeah.
And may I just add on this, what you just said, Yudhi, is this change of perspective when, of course, you have the communication and it's like one person talking to many, but in our preparation talk you said that the idea is actually for the audience of this, and especially I think what you're doing in your high school student seminars is for the individuals to really understand it themselves, and therefore there's the listening is required. Yeah. And listening to somebody who's in the process of understanding something is something that's just a lot more work, and it requires much more time and patience to help this process on the way.
Yeah, so when we train our facilitators, the first thing I say to them is, your job is not to talk to them, your job is to listen to them, which is a very hard thing to train, because if you want to help someone without just giving them the answer, right? As mathematicians, we solve problems that nobody in the world knows the answer to. There's no answer at the back of the book, and we sort of have to find the answer within ourselves. And to recreate that feeling for a high school child, that's a challenge, and you don't do that by just telling them the answer. So training someone how to prompt a child and how to listen very carefully to what the child is saying and react to that, and to react to that in a way that is not biased by the fact that we know what's coming up in the workshop, that's a big problem that I'm still trying to figure out how to do. Yeah.
Now, please, I'm so curious.
I would like to add to the possibilities of measuring the impact and to make sure that we're doing something that it's worth spreading. I started doing educational technology and learning analytics, which is very much to the core of my probabilistic and statistical mind. And it helps incredibly by doing, for example, focus groups where you go, you do the activities, and then after that you actually capture the reaction of the participants. And then I will say, for me, as when I'm doing mathematics, until the paper is there on the archive, or sent to publication, I kind of consider that people might not be able to reproduce it or to use it. So this is why I think to be able to publish, for example, in collaborative learning experiences, innovative learning experiences, have allowed the particular projects that I'm leading to actually increase very much the capabilities for reproducibility, the scalability, and also hopefully we will have more and more this mindsetting that is coming from our mathematical computer science of having data that allow us to increase the power of the outreach and educational activities that we are developing and implementing. And I will say also one measure of it in general in the world is how the stakeholders and also how like directors of institutes, I can give an example, like Anna Winhardt, they are very much in their heart and in their let's say that the politics that they are implementing to actually have a strong impact in the community, and to really try to have outreach and educational projects coming from the research the high-level research that is being done at the institutions out there. And I think approaching the people who are directing our institutes and then making the case that we do need to increase these activities, I think it's very much important.
Yeah. Just I guess we're coming near the end of this panel discussion, and I wanted to ask you actually about your visions and hopes and dreams for science communication and mathematics, and how, I don't know if you like time travel in, 5 years, maybe too much. Let's say 3, and then you look back and say, like, oh, this was worth the effort. Like, my work has been worth the effort. What has happened? What would make you feel that, this was valuable time investment?
One of the things that I'm super grateful now is to be able to be a research group leader, and the students and postdocs and even Bell students here, high school students that do special programs or undergraduates, they're doing research and they're doing also outreach, and they're developing mathematics visualization. They're developing video games within these projects. And I think their skills, the skills that they are attaining by doing this is soft skills, but it's also a knowledge and understanding of the impact that they can have in society. So I think this will also reduce the isolation that we know is a problem for well-being in academia, and also the sense that what we are doing has no impact, immediate impact in society. And yes, I will say that for me, being able to be a mentor that is going there and using the laser cutter with my group and the 3D printer, and okay, let's test this video game that is going to talk about sliding puzzles and configuration spaces, and that we're publishing the paper to the archive where it has the GitHub repository that people can go and use it everywhere in the world. Like, I think that younger generations will appreciate to be able to have these experiences. And something that I would like to add very quickly is that doing this with the democratization mindset allows us to also helping them to realize that we have a lot of boundaries, that there is a lot of xenophobia, there is a lot of gender issues in academia, and that they will be the next generation, and that we could actually do a little bit more to solve these problems. Yes.
Thank you, Erica. That was sounds good for your vision. Convey, would you also like to add what you like? If you look into 3 years and you look back, what would make you feel? I think on with the people you work with, but also maybe on an institutional level.
Yes, as a woman and an African girl, I feel that I have 2 challenges about math communication and science communication. The first one is to encourage women in math. So that's the activity we did with the Senegalese Women in Math Association, where we used to celebrate every year the International Women's Day in Mathematics, which coincides with the birthday of Mariam Mir Sahani, the first woman who won the field medals. And in this kind of activities, I think that I will be happy one day if we increase the number of girls in science in Africa and in Senegal. And the other challenge is also related to the number of students in science in general. For example, in Senegal, for the high school diploma, we have more than 80% they choose literal field, and only 16 students choose science field. And I think that how we can do to increase the number of students choosing this field is that African researchers, I mean, it's very common in Europe to have researchers going to high school to communicate about science. But in Africa, it is not very developed. So I would like to call on all scientists in Africa to get involved in science communication, because I think that we have to move the narrative from science is for other to science is for us too. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good catchphrase. Science is for us. Yeah. Who wants to go first? Yudhi, Moira.
When we started this project, one of the big motivations was that we saw, at least in Australia at the time, there was a lot of outreach about maths is very useful. You know, maths will get you, open up career opportunities. There was a lot of outreach about, oh, here are some interesting mathematical results. They're really cool. But there was not a lot of outreach about just giving people a better understanding of what mathematics is, right? Just this thing that we experience all day, every day, that we don't know how to describe somehow because we experience it all day, every day. And so occasionally, you know, we bump into students who go, why are you doing a maths degree? And they go, because I like maths. And I say, well, there are a lot of engineering students who tell me that they chose engineering because they like maths. So I don't think liking maths usually translates to wanting to do a maths degree. Why do you want to do a maths degree? And occasionally some student will tell us about a story when they did this workshop and not realize that the guy who they're talking to was there. But I don't think it's about getting people to do a maths degree. It would be quite horrible if every last person on earth wanted to do a mathematics degree. Right?
That's paradise.
but what I mean to say is that it would be nice if the general population had a better understanding of what mathematics, it actually means to do mathematics, what it means to be a mathematician. And how we measure that, I'm not sure. I'd love to know. It would be nice if, for example, every time I got into a taxi, the reactions people had were a little different from what I get now. But I'm also not sure if that's the way we measure that. You know? So this is a big open problem we need to solve.
You want to disagree? Please, go ahead.
No. I want to add something. I think there are some spaces that we could actually go and do the outreach and these activities. So I don't know, someone has the even cell growth process with pentagons in your hands. Perhaps you could show it. Someone has it? No, the even cell growth. Yes. So what you do is, I study first passage percolation models, and basically what you do is you start with a tile. The common one is with a square, and then you attach one uniformly random. And the only thing that you need to require is that two tiles do not overlap. So when you take a polyform that does not tessellate, in particular the Euclidean space, then you start having very interesting topological and geometric properties. And one of the things that's going to happen next week on a festival, Desfoga Festival in Galicia, is that we're going to be at a museum the whole week of the art festival, and people are going to grow this cell growth process. And then we're going to see how cell growth processes are humanly generated, meaning I think the properties are going to be very different. But it's just for mentioning that I think it is important, as we know, that we go to students that could potentially go into STEAM. But as you are mentioning, I think mathematics and computer science can empower anyone working on any field. And also, it could give to very interesting collaboration. And in particular, I think collaborating with artists is a way of going to the general public, as they are very much there with artistic festivals that a lot of people attend, for example. So this was an example.
Okay, very briefly, we have, because we want to have some time for questions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I must say that I think that, I mean, I ended my answer just now with something quite pessimistic, which is it's still an open problem. But one thing that we do is we have feedback forms. And of course, one of the functions of those feedback forms is to measure feedback. But the other function is actually to gain some evidence that they've obtained the learning outcome. So for example, we have one workshop which is about how sometimes in mathematics we don't solve problems by solving the problem directly, but making connections to other problems. And in the early days of the workshop, we would get feedback like, oh, I really enjoyed playing with the cups and so on. And as we continued to improve it, the feedback started to shift towards, I thought it was really cool that all of the problems were connected in the end. I think that's one way for us to have some evidence that things work. Yeah. But that's very short term.
Yeah. Moira, do you want to give us a very brief vision for how you know that your science communication efforts were worth it?
Say it again?
How you know that the efforts you took in science communication feel worth it for you?
Oh, but you were asking what is your future plan? That's another question. I have an answer to the question, what is your,
Please.
My future plan? And this is it's very short and it's my goal. And it's like I want to help people. I wrote it down because help people, find the beauty of math and walk on a path to deep understanding. That's what I want to do.
That's
and, how do I know my effort works? When you see the aha in the eyes, or you hear the aha on the people you're communicating with.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very poetic. So I guess we have a very brief time for questions from the audience, please. I see someone there, but I'm a very bad thrower. Can somebody They're in the back. It was caught. Yay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I also wrote it down because the question came through my head already quite a while ago. And I like to pick up on the comment by Erika about scalability of science communication and on Komba's comment on getting scientists into schools. So my question to the panelists is what they think the role is of open licensing of science communication materials. Open licenses do not place restrictions on the use, which allows basically use in new contexts. Like I could reuse some of the Spanish language materials from Erika in the schools in Senegal by translating them into Wolof. And also I could use these things in Wikipedia articles and things like that.
Perhaps, yes, that's a super important question. Thanks for asking it. So I can give you an example on a project that I started 13 years ago, and now I think it reached the scalability that we were expecting. So it's on bringing music and mathematics into schools, and the path that it's actually through the whole middle school and primary school. And what we're doing now with a consortium that is at 6 different countries, but also with the support of a grant from the German government and learning tools competitions. I don't know if someone knows that. So it is supported by Google, by Lego, etc. So we received enough funding for having a cluster where we have all possible topics that you could have, in particular fractions. And we have some artificial intelligence behind that the teacher go there and then say, I want to teach these topics. And then the system will adapt by models to give actually the teacher the whole lessons on the platform. So, and for example, in these learning competitions tools that we won, I have to say it was more than 800 participants and they only selected 8. But this is a project that I have been working a lot with my brother, who is a musician. So they give us a lot of feedback and guidance on how to actually do scalability of these projects. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge that I think we need also to reach out to consortiums that have the possibility of empowering us with the technology and with the computer science that is needed for actually being able to get this to different countries. And the answer to the other thing is yes, you can have access to everything that it's being developed, at least at the Max Planck Institute through the Math Outreach Lab in 4 languages. And also, you could talk to us because the citizen math project that we have now, that is a FENS challenge, also has a database that is saving all the data for people playing it, and you can reproduce it and please use it at your institutions. Yeah.
Okay, I think that the question was about open license for math or on science communication in general. Yeah, no. Licensing, yes. I'm working on a company, and the funny thing is that I'm on a team named Open Source Team. So I'm the founder of open source in all kind of domain. So what I would like maybe to talk about is an amazing project named Imaginary by Andreas Matt. And I think that it can be seen as a global area where science communication people can just open their creation, and other science communication can also use. So go on the Imaginary website and use it.
Yeah, this is a shout out to Andreas, who was supposed to be here but couldn't make it. So now we're making the advertisement for Imaginary. Either way, thank you, Kumar. Do we have time for one more question? Yeah, I don't see anybody. So please, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I was in a section in Morocco where they explain, a PhD student explained his work, where they were able to discover a farmer which is not literate in terms of education, language, and co, but they were able to discover that everything he does is scientific. So what might have led to such a skew, even without education?
To whom is the question? I'm sorry. Whom are you asking? Anyone?
I think it would be better with Kumba.
Kumba, yes, please. Can you repeat the question? Just make the
question slowly.
Okay, sorry. Okay, there was a discovery of a farmer in a village in Morocco where the farmer is not literate in English and doesn't have any form of education. But the PhD student was able to discover that this farmer, everything he does is scientific. So the question is, what might have led to such a skew despite not being educated?
That's a question on where does math come in the end? Where does math come from?
I don't know if I can answer to this question. It is a very difficult question, and I think that I have to think about it more, so we can discuss about it maybe.
I think it's just a beautiful question to just
yes,
some
it's
sound
a
to
very interesting question.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is and this is documented. I think that we have a tendency for using what we call mathematics and algorithmic thinking, I think, even before we could call it what we call mathematics. Also, I think what we see here mainly is mathematics that have been pushed by communities that have been on power in so many levels, and there are communities that develop beautiful mathematics that perhaps were eliminated or were huge genocides, and this is why we are not building on top of the mathematics that they developed. So I will say, unfortunately, is our loss as humanity. But as we were discussing here, it's important to go with an ear to the people out there to actually know that they have that knowledge, the biological knowledge inside, even if they have not been instructed in the particular mathematics that are, I will say, on the power right now worldwide. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So I don't have an answer to your question directly, but there is a book called Mathematics for Human Flourishing by Francis Su. And it's actually often when people ask me for advice how to prepare for HLF, I actually recommend that they read that book. And when that book was published, it gave us, our team, the language that we needed to describe what we wanted to do. And my interpretation of it is that Francis argues that the act of learning mathematics does not just help us, in careers or whatever, but just helps us live a more fulfilling life. So if I can give a brief example of my personal experience, actually talking to Francis, so we were at an event in Sydney, and he just spent a sabbatical there, and he asked me, is there a convenience store near the university? And I could say no, end of conversation, but somehow my mathematical training has taught me to ask, why do you need a convenience store? And he answered, because I need to buy batteries. And I thought, well, a convenience store is not the only place where you can buy batteries. And so this actually was one of the things that stirred the workshop I work with on Louis, with the idea that the problem that you need to solve is not, the problem that you think you need to solve is not necessarily the problem you need to solve. And I think, in some sense, because we learn mathematics, subconsciously we learn that kind of thinking skills that are useful in non-mathematical contexts.
So Yudhi was making a case for learning more mathematics while
Every context is mathematical.
Yeah, there's like an innate drive for math in us as human beings. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. Let's thank our panelists.